A good Erev Shabbos, everyone. A royal welcome as we begin with the help of Hashem Yisbarach, learning Parshas Bo, the Parsha which speaks so much about the fundamentals of Yiddishkeit. As always, we begin with our thanks to TorahAnytime.com for this global platform. It's something that even not so long ago was unimaginable, to have a platform that people could hear a shir simultaneously in 180 countries. We want to thank Chazak for publicizing the shir, and of course to all of you for coming. And my tremendous gratitude to sponsors that sponsor this shir. There was like an overwhelming amount of sponsorships this week. I thank them and I thank Hashem Yisbarach. The first that came forward was my dear Talmud of many years, Eliezer Fox, who's sponsoring the shir for a refuah for his dear wife, Mina Rachel Bas Yocheved. She should have refuas hanefesh, refuas haguf, and a quality arichas yamim together with Eliezer. We have a postal sponsor tonight, Emily Liebling, with fervent, heartfelt wishes of a happy birthday to our sister Miriam, and she wishes Miriam and her husband Heshi Raskus from Baltimore that they should have a bayis neman with zarachaya v'kayama and hatzlacha and ruchnius and gashmias. We have an anonymous sponsor this week with a tefillah for all those that have fertility issues. They should have zarachaya v'kayama, healthy mommy, healthy baby. Those that need a shidduch should find a shidduch, and for Yeshua's for Klal Yisrael. And also finally by Amram Halpert, who says that we should have in mind, he should have a schus, the happiness for himself, for his family, for his parents, and he should have hatzlacha in business, in ruchnius, and in gashmias. I want to thank these sponsors. You know, it's always a little tricky when people hear, oh, he had so many sponsors, then people don't come forward, and that's also not good. The source of income of these shiurim is the sponsorship. So if you would like to sponsor next week, the way it works is I need to hear at the beginning of the week, because I record it special for those that want to get the email earlier in the week, and you could subscribe for that as well. So the number to call to sponsor is 718-916-3100, 718-916-3100, and email, you can text there as well, and the email is rmmwsi@aol.com, Rabbi Moshe Meir, Staten Island, at aol.com. Sometimes this shir has a life of its own, and sometimes I work on a lot of different subjects, and then it ends up zooming in on one subject. It's a subject that I've spoken about before, but since its lessons are so vital for the health and well-being of the home, of the workplace, in shul, and also it promises success in Parnasa, and it promises the Oragonas, the hidden light in the next world, which is like, you know, the one thing that is so good that Hashem didn't give at all in this world, because nobody except for tzaddikim could benefit from it. So we're going to zoom in on this subject. It says, "L'chol b'nei Yisrael lo yecharatz kelav l'shayna," that on the night of Makas B'chayris and the ensuing time when we left Mitzrayim 3 million strong, no dog barked at Klal Yisrael. Now, because of this, the dog kind was rewarded for all time. It says that because the dogs didn't bark, they merited ubasa basad the treifa loiseichelu la kelev tashlichan oisai. As the Daz Zakein and Balitaisus and many other Rishonim inform us from the Mechilta, that therefore the dogs were rewarded that if you have a treifa, an animal torn in the field, you should throw it to the dogs. So dogs were given parnasa for all time because of the fact that they didn't bark. And as it says in the Yalkut Shemaini, the dogs also merited that mitzayasan, from their feces, from their manure, we treat the hides of Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzahs. In other words, the hide has to be treated with zevel, and we treat the hide specifically with the tzaya of kalavim. That's a very big honor. The Sefer Torah is the holiest item on earth. It's the Torah, which is the words of Hashem. And the klaf that houses them is treated. It could have been treated with all kinds of chemicals. But the dogs were rewarded that they make the klaf roi for the word of Hashem. It's a very big reward. Now, why would they have barked? Let's understand that there was a strong reasons for them to bark. That's why they were rewarded. You know, you get more reward when you hold back from doing something. If you had a lot of reasons to do it, the more reasons that you have to do it, the more reward you get for holding back. So the dogs had many reasons to bark. The Gemara says that when the Malach HaMavis comes to the city, the kalavim beichen, the dogs whelp. And that the night of the Seder, although it says lo yal yedei malach v'lo yal yedei sarif el HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'kvaydoi ba'atzmai, that was the killing of the firstborns. But it says v'ein bayis asher ein sham meis. There was no house of Egyptians that somebody didn't die, because if there was no bechor, let's say a girl was born first, let's say there was no children, so then it says the gadol shebabayis, the oldest person in the house, died. Now that was done not by Hashem, that was done by the mashchis. So the Malach HaMavis came that night in a very big way, and yet the dogs didn't react. Furthermore, it tells us in Masechtas Brachos that the night has either 3 or 4 mishmaros and watches, and each watch something else happens. In the middle watch, the kalavim are tzayikim, the dogs bark. So therefore, this was a time at chatzais that normally the dog should bark. It was their standard teva to bark at that time. Furthermore, there were a lot of nevelos in the city. Dogs eat nevelos, corpses, and there were a lot of nevelos. Everybody died by the Egyptians, and that would make the dogs go berserk. All of a sudden, such a newfound source of food. You have to know that dogs are the hungriest of animals. Hashem made it that because dogs don't have much to eat, the food remains in their intestines for 3 days. It's brought down. That's why their zevel, their dung, is used for the Sefer Torah, because it's processed more in the body, because Hashem made a miracle that their manure stays in the system for 3 days. Therefore, it cooks better, and it's better for the Sefer Torah. So when the dogs saw all those nevelos, they would normally go crazy, but they didn't bark. Furthermore, the Paneach Raza says that we know the Yidden had makelchem biyedchem. When they left, they had their sticks in their hands, and dogs that see a person with a stick bark. That's what the Paneach Raza said. Also, we know that no one left Egypt. Egypt was very well protected. Even animals didn't get out so easily from Egypt, so that their breeding should be preserved. And yet, how did they do this? They had border patrols. So it was dogs ringing around the border of Egypt. And yet now, when 3 million people left in less than 18 minutes, not one dog barked. So again, there were many reasons for the dogs to bark. Now, furthermore, what does it say? We all went out with dough on our backs, right? It says that we carried the dough on our backs and it didn't have time to ferment. So we all had food on our backs. The dogs saw all that food, the hungry dogs, and they didn't bark. So there were many reasons for the dogs to bark, and yet they didn't bark. Now, the benefit of this, what was the big deal that b'nei Yisrael yechretz kelev l'shaynai? So first of all, we have to know that the Gemara says that a dog barking could cause a woman to miscarry, Rachmana litzlan. The Gemara tells about a story of a woman that went to bake in another person's house. She borrowed the oven, and a big dog came and barked, and the owner came and said, "Oh, don't worry, I defanged the dog. It has no teeth." And she said to him, "Take your favors and throw it upon the thorns. Kfar nod vlad. The barking scared me and the baby already became detached. You caused me to miscarry." So we know that barking dogs could scare a pregnant woman. And it could be that this is the meaning that we say, Afilu ubarim shebemei imam amru shira alayam. Even fetuses in their mother's womb said song by the Red Sea. And it could be the fetuses were giving thanks that just before, 7 days before, when they left Mitzrayim, there was the miracle that no dogs barked and none of the pregnant women got hurt. But besides that, Rav Katz says, he says in the Oyel Aryeh that we find that whenever Hashem brings a Yeshua, Hashem makes it pleasant. That's why, for example, when Yosef was taken down to Mitzrayim, he was taken down by salesmen that sold perfume. So he should go down to his eventual appointment by a viceroy, he should go down pleasantly. We find that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was put in the Suf and hidden by Yocheved, before Bisya retrieved him, it says that it was, the little ark was coated with zephyrus on the outside, but chemer in the inside, not with pitch on the inside, that he shouldn't smell something unpleasant, because the salvation of Hashem comes pleasantly. So we find, for example, that Pesach always falls out in the spring. Pesach always falls out b'chodesh Aviv. By the way, this is one of the reasons why we add an extra month every several years. We make a leap year, because if we would always calculate according to the lunar calendar, right? Klal Yisrael counts according to the Levana. So sometimes Pesach would not fall out in the spring, but Pesach has to fall out b'chodesh Aviv. So there's an element in the Jewish calendar that has to work with the solar calendar to ensure that Pesach falls out in the spring. Sometimes we have to add an extra month to the lunar calendar to make sure that Pesach falls out in the spring. It's important because Hashem, when he takes out the Bnei Yisrael, he takes them out in a pleasant way. So he took them out when the weather was pleasant in the spring. So here too, we know that Hashem, when he takes us out, he makes sure that we don't get scared by the dogs. Now the Masik Ar, in his drushes, and many other Mefarshim ask, there were other creatures, other species that shone during the plagues. For example, the Tzvardeya. The Tzvardeya, it says that some of them went into the ovens, and we just learned in the Daf HaYomi, in Psachim, and by the way, mentioning Daf HaYomi, just this week we started the second section of Masechtas Psachim called Pesach Sheni, as we learn about the Karban Pesach. If you would like to join our Daf HaYomi, we have a chabura of over 50 people learning on Zoom, and we'd love to have you. It's at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, so to speak, 7:45 p.m., both on Motzei Shabbos and throughout the week. And what you do is you go to zoom.com, and then you put in my cell phone, 718-916-3100 as the ID. I let you in the waiting room, and I'd love to have you join us. So anyway, we learned in the Daf recently that the Tzardeya went into fired up, preheated ovens. They were Moise Nefesh to do the will of Hashem. What was their reward? Their reward was that they survived. They survived. Unlike the other tzaradim that were taken away at the end of the plague, they survived. So they risked their lives. They were Moise Nefesh to do the will of Hashem. They were blessed to survive. The dogs didn't bark, and they were blessed with parnasa throughout the centuries, throughout the millennia, like Elef Tashlichan Isai. And they were blessed to treat the hides of the Sifrei Torah. It also says we know that each one of us went out with scores of chamorim, scores of donkeys that carried the silver and the gold and the rechush of Mitzrayim. Every Jew had scores of donkeys, different versions, 70 donkeys, 80 donkeys, 90 donkeys that carried the plenty of Mitzrayim. What did the donkeys get a reward? So the Mefarshim bring down that the donkeys were rewarded that with the din of Pidyon Chamar, that a firstborn donkey you have to redeem, and if you don't redeem it with a sheep, then you have to break its neck. So they get rewarded with breaking its neck. What is this? The Chamar is schlepping, and the frog is going into fire, and they don't get parnasa through the millennia. The dog doesn't bark, and he is rewarded with parnasa throughout the millennia. And Masaka Or and many other Mefarshim say in unison that the understanding is that it's much harder to hold back from saying something than even to go into the fire. Now this is a very important realization. When somebody is reacting, if somebody is hurt or insulted or attacked, for a person to be quiet takes a huge amount of koiches. You know, we have a klal that lefum tsara agra, according to the hardship, is the reward. From the fact that the reward is so great over here, it's a realization that if somebody is able to exercise control and to hold back and to be quiet, the reward is very, very great. Now, I will tell you that they bring down that the chamar that carried all the good of the kesef and the zav, there was some people used that kesef and zav for the egel hazav, to make the golden calf, which was a terrible sin, and some people used that kesef and zav to give money to the mishkan. So that's why perhaps there's a split decision on what happens to the chamar, right? So that which was used for holiness, so that's tifta besed, that's redeemed with a sheep. If not, then it breaks the neck. That's why there was a split decision by the chamar. Now, there's a famous Yalkut Shemaini. The Yalkut Shemaini in Remes Kuf Pei Zayin brings down that Rabbi Shaya, a Talmidai shel Rab Chanina ben Daisa, fasted 85 fasts. 85 fasts, because he was troubled. I mean, you know, some people have a kasha, and they say tzarachian. Other people, they work on it a little bit. And other people might even lose some sleep over it. But Rabbi Yeshaya was so troubled by this that he fasted 85 fasts. He didn't understand. The kalavim, dogs, are known as azei nefesh, as being very chutzpahdik. You know, it's brought down that the dog is the only animal that was condemned to be held by a leash. You never see somebody holding a cat by a leash. You never see any animal being held by a leash except for a dog. That was a special curse because the dog had the chutzpah to have relations in the teva. The dog is known as an azei nefesh. And Rabbi Yeshayas was troubled that in Perek Shira, where it records the share of 85 animals, the dog says a very special shira. In Perek Shira, it says that the dog's song is Bo nishtacha v'nichra, let us bow down and kneel, nivracha lifnei Hashem Eloseinu, let us bless Hashem our Maker. And Rabbi Shaya was troubled. Why the Kelev that has such an azus upon him, why was he zoicha to such a shira to Hashem? And in Yalkut Shemaini it says very poetically that Hashem says that his efforts are going to have revealed to him a side, a secret that was only revealed to the great Chavakuk Hanavi, that previously it was only revealed to Chavakuk the prophet. There was a great prophet, Chavakuk. And he said it was in merit of the fact that Lo Yechratz Kelev L'Shaynai, the dogs didn't bark, and they fulfilled what it says, Shomer Pivu L'Shaynai, a person that guards his mouth and his tongue, Shomer Mitzarais Nafshay. He guards his soul from all kinds of distress, from all kinds of anxiety, from all kinds of pain. Right? So he prayed, Pei Hei Tanesim. They say that the 85 Tanesim is because of Peh, because Peh, the mouth, is Gematria 85. He wanted to understand why the dogs merited this schus to give shira to Hashem. Now, I want to emphasize what we're learning over here, because it's really rather remarkable. There's many great things that we could do with our mouth. We know that Akel Kol Yaakov. We know that when Balak went to ask, he asked the Ziknei Midian. When Balak was worried about the Jews, he said that the leader of these people, B'Midyan Niskadlu, grew up in Midian. Let me see Mativoi. What makes him tick? So he asked the Ziknei Midian, and the Ziknei Midian informed him, Einum nosan shel elu ela b'peh. Their greatness, every country has their specialty, has their power. The power of the Jewish people is through the mouth. Now, there are many things that we could do with our mouth. We could sing beautiful songs to Hashem. We could offer consolation to suffering people. Person knows how to talk to widows, to talk to orphans, to talk to people that suffered loss. There are people that know how to give eitzah. There are people that know how to give advice. There are chazanim that know how to be ma'orer levavos, to awaken hearts to prayer. There are darshanim that know how to stimulate people to become better. But the greatest accomplishment of the mouth, we see, is to know how to keep your mouth shut in face of confrontation. Now you'll say, Rabbi Weiss, who says it's the greatest? We're learning that this is important, but who says, that that's the zenith? Who says that that's the pinnacle? The bottom line is the pasuk says, it's a amazing pasuk which we appreciate now with the telescope. In the olden days, they didn't appreciate it so much before there were pictures, before there were telescopes. But the pasuk says, Toila Eretz al Blima. The world is supported upon nothingness. This heavy world that has bridges and skyscrapers and tunnels and stadiums, it's a very heavy world. It sits in a perfect orbit on nothingness. It's hanging on nothingness. That's Toila Eretz al Belima. The world is suspended on nothingness. It's an amazing thing. But the Gemara says a homiletic interpretation of this pasuk. Toila Eretz al Belima, ein ha'oila miskayim ela b'mi sheboilim piv b'shas meriva. The world survives on someone who shuts their mouth in a time of confrontation. Now, when there's a confrontation, and somebody, especially when somebody makes accusations at you or arguments which you think are unfair, you want to get them broiled and cause a conflagration. If you are able to keep quiet to zip it, then the world exists because of you. Isn't that interesting? I mean, we know that the world exists because of Torah. Im loy brisi yomim v'loyla, chukah shemayim v'aretz like something. If it's not for the covenant of Torah, I would not make the statutes of heaven and earth. That's what it says. Vayera vayker yom hashishi. The whole world is dependent on yom hashishi. Hey is chamisha chumshei Torah, and hashishi is the 6th of Sivan, Torah. If not for Torah, the world would be returned to Toyu Vavayu. That's why it says, Kaf aleim har kegigis, Hashem held the Mount Sinai above us and said, if you're makabel it, good. If not, Shem take for aschem. Then that's it. Finished. Curtains. The world is finished. Right, so, but here, that's why, by the way, in Volozhin operated on a 24-hour schedule. It's interesting. In Volozhin, they had what's called submarine beds. Because in nuclear submarines, they didn't have beds for everybody on the submarine. They don't have room. What they did is they had a bed for a third of the people. So let's say there was 24 people. They had 8 beds. And then they had an infirmary if somebody got sick. And they slept on shifts. Right? There were shifts. And that's the way it was in Volozhin. First of all, they didn't have enough svarim, so they divided it in 3. There were 3 shifts in Volozhin because they felt that there should be someone learning at all times to be Mekayim the world. Torah is Mekayim the world, right? The Talmidei Chachamim, al tikrei bonayich ala bonayich, they're the builders of the world. But here we're learning that also those that know how to keep quiet in the face of confrontation, they build the world. The truth of the matter is, we know that there are certain things that we want to accomplish in our stay upon earth. Right? It says that one of the things that we want to do is learn Torah. We were created to learn Torah. We were created for prayer. I created this nation to pray. That's why we were called Yehudim, people that give thanks. That's why we were created. David HaMelech says, Ani Zvila. That's who I am. I'm a person of prayer. Right? A woman is to have children. Right? The Rachel Imenu said, V'im ayin meisa anoichi. Right? So a woman has to try to have children. Some women, they don't merit having children. Great women. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. The Rebbetzin of the Chazon Ish, the Rebbetzin of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, they didn't have children. Right? But by and large, a woman is to have children. But even more than to have children, she is created to be an Ezer Kenegdai. Right? Because it says, Loi Toiva Yos Adam Levadai, Esa Loi Ezer Kenegdai, to be an Ezer, to be a helper to her husband. One of the purposes, one of the major accomplishments in life is taught to us in a very, very important Gemara on Daf Pei Tes in Masechtas Chulin. The Gemara teases us. The Gemara asks us, Ma umnosoi shel odam ba'olam hazeh? What's a person's profession in this world? Now that's an interesting question. We would say it depends who you are. Some people are a CPA. Other people are diamond setters. Other people drive buses. Other people are doctors. Other people are lawyers. Some people are rabbis. What do you mean, ma umnasei shel adam ba'olam hazeh? So the Gemara says, you know something? There's another type of umnus. You're right. You're talking about a livelihood. But there's another profession that every man and woman has to master. Yeah, there's a college for this profession. What is that? That's a real tease. Gemara says, Ma umnasei shel adam ba'olam hazeh. It's a Beferish Gemara. This should be highlighted in every yeshiva and Beis Yaakov. Ma umnasei shel adam ba'olam hazeh Yase atzmai ke'ilim. You should make yourself as a mute. You should learn how to be a mute. In other words, this is a voluntary, selective mute. A person should know when to be quiet and how to be quiet. Now, from the fact that the Gemara calls this an umnus, if somebody wants to learn a profession, let's say somebody wants to become a doctor. So he has to learn about human anatomy, he has to learn about medicine. To study to become a doctor, you have to learn a lot of things. You want to be a therapist, you have to learn different modalities to become a therapist, right? You want to become, let's say, an accountant. There's so many regulations that you have to learn. In order to know how to be quiet, you have to master the discipline. It's an umnus. It's not something that you could one day say, I'm not going to do it. First you have to learn how important it is. Reb Shimon Gamliel sets the stage in Pirkei Avos. Reb Shimon Gamliel teaches us when he says, Kol yomai gadalti bein hachachamim. All my life I grew up amongst the sages. You know what that statement means? Imagine if I told you, all my life I grew up with Reb Moshe, with Reb Yaakov, with the Satmar Rebbe, and I watched them. And I didn't find anything better. You're gonna listen. Yeah. You're waiting for the climax. And then it's almost a downer. You want me to give you something to sink your teeth in? And what do I answer? Shtika. Well, doing nothing? That's the best thing? But listen to what Reb Shimon Gamliel is saying. Kol yomai gadalti bein hachachamim v'loi matzasi leguf toiv mishtika. I found nothing better for the body. And Rav Miller would say, listen to the choice of words over here. It doesn't say the nefesh. It says v'loi matzasi leguf toiv mishtika. Because Rav Miller would say that so many different sicknesses come because people get upset, they get stressed, they get angry. Rav Miller would always say that the letters of Kas are the same letters as Eches. Eches is the venom of a snake, the poison of a snake. He says anger is poisonous. When spouses go at each other and cause each other pain and hurt, it causes so many health problems. It causes high blood pressure, it causes heart disease, it causes ulcers, it causes acid reflux, it causes early stage diabetes, Rahman al-Islam, it causes heart attacks. That's what it says. Yesh boite kimitkarais charev. There are those that speak, and it's like the stabbing of a sword. However, l'shayin chachamim marpeh. The tongue of the wise is soothing. That's why a spouse that knows how to say kind, nice things, oh, what a wondrous thing that is. I heard from Rav Kellemer, Zechet Tzadik Levracha, the world lost another terrible casualty from the COVID. Rav Kellemer would talk about how people ask, when they call up about a shidduch, they ask the wrong things. He said humorously, somebody asked, did the grandmother go to the mikveh? He said, I'm not so old. But he said wistfully, I wish somebody would ask, is this boy going to be kind to my daughter? Is he going to be gentle to my daughter? You have to know that, what do we praise the Eishes Chayil with? Piha poscha b'chachma. Her mouth opens with wisdom. It says, V'sayras chesed al l'shayna. and the Torah of kindness is upon our tongue. People make a mistake and they think that Torah's Chesed al L'Shaina means that she calls up and she finds shidduchim for people and she gets home to the guests, and that's a nice thing. But the Torah's Chesed al L'Shaina is the way she talks at home, the way she talks to her children, the way she talks to her spouse. That's the Tzayfiyah Halichos Beisa, the woman who is charged with creating the aura of her home. You know, when a woman lights candles Friday night, so of course she's remembering Zeichel L'Maaseh Bereishis, that Shabbos is remembering the creation. The first thing that was created was Vayomer Elikim Yehi Ar. So she sets the tone by reminding that Shabbos is Zeicha to creation. The world wasn't always here. It didn't come about by a big bang. It was created by Hashem. The first creation was light, so she lights the candles. Of course, she's also, because she, as Chava, she put out the light of the world and brought death to mankind. She's relighting the light of the world. But there's something else. The woman's lighting the candles symbolizes that she is in charge of creating the aura, the avirah, the warmth of the home. That's what she does when she lights the candles. That's why it says that if you only have money for kiddush or candles, then you forgo kiddush, you forgo the wine, you even forgo the challah, and you keep the candles, because shalom bayis odif tvei. And the fact that the woman lights it shows that she is in charge. She could make the difference. That's her arena. She could either make it or she could break it. Now, of course, the husband, if he's smart, he has the equal responsibility. That's why the husband lights the candles first and puts them out, getting them ready for the wife, showing that he takes the responsibility of creating that aura as well. And of course, if it's a joint effort, Ish v'isha shalom beineim, then the yud of the ish and the hey of the isha fuse together and give the ka and the shechina havas in the home. That's why there's nothing worth risking that shalom bayis, because without it, as Rashi says in Bechukaisai, im ein shalom ein klum. So we have to know that when a person thinks about v'loy matzasi leguf toiv mishtika, so a person tries to purge from their mouth oinas, devarim, hurtful words, kas, anger, sarcasm, criticism, ridicule, disdain. These are all things that a person should try, if they catch themselves, if they catching themselves speaking, mocking, mimicking. If they catch themselves doing these activities, they have to know that they're straying from the L'shain Chacham Marpeh, from the Pia Pascha B'Chachma, from the Seiras Chesed al L'shaina. There's a Baal Shem Tov on this Lo Matzasi Leguf Tov Mishtika. The Baal Shem Tov says on the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, the pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, Nafshi Yotza B'Dabrei. So the Baal Shem Tov says that whenever we speak, part of our life force is used up, because a person was given a certain amount of words, as the Mekubalim say, as cited in the Sefer Mishmeres Tzvi. A person has an allotment of words, and when they use up their words, they expire, as it says that Hashem made man nefesh chaya, a spirit of life, l'ruach memalala, a spirit that speaks. And when we use up our quota, that's it. Of course, words of Torah, words of tefillah, words of mitzvahs don't count. That's why if you talk with your spouse and you make your spouse feel good, or you engage in a connection with your spouse, that doesn't count, right? You give advice to your children, that doesn't count, right? You give a person chizik, right? Or even if you relax through talking and that gives you a koyach to do better, that doesn't count. But stamazai, talking, that words that hurt, words that are mazik, those words cause our life force to ebb. Now we know, if you have a nest egg in a mutual fund, you're very loath to take it out because you want to keep it. You don't want to use it up, right? So that's the same way we have to view with words. We don't want to use up words on hurtful words. And we also have to know that when we are careful how we speak, there are mitzvahs and then there are mitzvahs. What do I mean? There's an elevated level of mitzvahs that we do that we're emulating Hashem. We're emulating Hashem. As it says, if you clothe the needy, then not only are you doing a mitzvah of Gemilas Chesed, but you're emulating Hashem who clothed Adam and Chava. When you do visit the sick, not only are you doing a mitzvah of Gemilas Chesedim, but you're emulating Hashem who visited Avram. That's the rarefied level of mitzvahs called v'halachta b'drachav, walking in the ways of Hashem, or v'zekeli vanveyu. This is my God. Vanveyu is anivu. I will be like He. The biggest glorification is when somebody imitates a person, right? So we imitate Hashem. Now it says about Hashem, Micha Meicha Ba'elam Hashem, like we say in the second bracha of Shemona Esrei. Now literally it means Micha Meicha Ba'elam Hashem. Who is like you amongst the mighty Hashem? Elam means mighty. Hashem, who is like you amongst the mighty? However, the Gemara in Masechtas Gittin on Nun Vav Amid Beis, that's a Gemara that the whole world learns on Tisha B'Av, because that's a Gemara that you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av. So it says that Titus HaRasha, when he defiled the temple, he walked into the Kodesh, walked up to the Kodesh Kedoshim, and took out his sword and slashed at the Paroiches. And Hashem made a miracle that the Paroiches started to bleed, and Titus shouted that he killed God. And it says that Hashem didn't respond. So the Gemara says, Micha Moicha Ba'ilmim Hashem. Who is like you amongst the mute Hashem? That you're Shemei Acher Pasa, you listen to shame, and you don't respond. So when we act in kind, and we know how to be quiet, we're exercising the very high level of the halachta b'drachav, walking in the ways of Hashem. By the way, in the Sefer Seder Shel Pesach, it says that one of the reasons the children steal the Afikaimen is the children steal the Afikaimen and the father doesn't say anything, and he doesn't, so to speak, bark. That's a memory of the fact that the Kalavim didn't bark. Of course, we're not comparing parents to dogs, but that's a memory we do. During the Seder, we make a memory of everything. Now, we see here that the reward for such self-control and discipline is parnasa l'dorei doros. Now, we know that a lot hinges upon parnasa. A lot hinges upon it. If there's good parnasa, there's no stress in the house. If there's good parnasa, people sleep better. If there's good parnasa, the whole home, the children grow up in a more relaxed environment. The husband and wife don't feel stressed out. Parnasa is a very big thing. There's a reason why a person's livelihood is called his chayim, right? It says that you shouldn't steal a person's nefesh. You shouldn't hold back a person's livelihood. It's his life. Money is called damim. It's like his blood. Right? A person gives their blood for money. That's why it says tzedakah tatzah memaves, because a person who gives from his life, he's rewarded with life. That's the connection. But the bottom line is parnas is a very big thing, and we see from over here that a person, just like the dogs were rewarded for all time for not barking, the dogs were rewarded that that they were rewarded their parnasa. We see that there is a linkage between not engaging in a confrontation, in a give or take that's contentious, to atzlacha in parnasa. And could be, by the way, that this is one of the reasons why it says lo toivei yoisa adam levadai. It's not good for a man to live alone. Because if a man lives alone, he doesn't have these interactions, he doesn't have, or she doesn't have these rewards. Also, that could be one of the reasons what it means. This is one of the benefits that one has from interacting with a wife. If the wife, the husband, they learn how to control themselves, they learn how to always be kind and nice to each other, then that affects the blessing of Parnasha in the house. Now, let's talk a little practically over here. If, let's say, a husband is speaking not nicely to his wife, right? And he raises his voice, and he says something unfair, and the wife feels that if she just lets it slide, then it can continue. And that's why she's motivated to answer back and to defend herself. And of course, in marriage, things are reciprocal. The marital relationship is called sus because it's reciprocal, it's a palindrome. And if he's going to become impassioned, then she's going to become impassioned, and it's not going to be a good result. But on the other hand, she feels that if she doesn't speak up, then he's going to do it again. And he's going to assume that he's right. So first of all, the key is not to respond when tempers are flared. That's number one. We know that ein meratzin es ha'adam b'shas kasei. We don't try to appease a person when they're angry. And by the way, this is such an important lesson that Hashem himself demonstrated this lesson. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to plead the case of the Bnei Yisrael by the golden calf, that Hashem shouldn't destroy the Bnei Yisrael, because Hashem said, look, let me destroy them, and I'll make from you a great nation. Look, I just gave them the 10 commandments, and they broke the second commandment. Let me destroy them. I'll make from you a great nation. And Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to plead the case. So Hashem said to Moshe, Chavi ma'at rega ad yavar zam. Hide about a moment, until my anger passes. Now, of course, Hashem doesn't have any emotions, but Hashem did this to demonstrate, and when Hashem demonstrates something, it shows how important it is. Don't try to reason and negotiate when people are angry. Ein meratzin l'adam b'shah ein meratzin es ha'adam b'shas kasei. We don't try to appease a person when they're angry. Like Rav Irving Bunim writes that a person is angry, his brain is in park. You can't move the car when it's in park. You can't reason with a person. A person is temporarily out of commission. So that's number one. Number one is, you can't leave the subject alone, but it shouldn't be discussed at that time. It should be discussed when people are in an even temper, and not when people are embroiled. That's number one. Number two, we know that it says, Tzadikim ne'lovin ve'enon olvin. Tzadikim are insulted and they don't answer back. Shoimin cherposan v'shoifkin. They listen to their disgrace and they're quiet. Oisin me'avo usmeichim b'yisurin. They do out of love. Now the connection is that if a person does for accolades, so then if they're insulted, that undermines everything that they're doing. But if they do it out of love of Hashem, that doesn't undermine their purpose. And therefore it doesn't hurt them that much. And then it says, Aleim Amar HaKosav, referring to them, does the pasuk say, V'oyavav kitzeitza shemesh b'gvurasai. Those that love him, it's like the sun going out in its might. The sun, why the sun? Because the moon said there can't be two kings in the sky, and the sun was quiet. He didn't answer back. We don't have any recording. We know the moon said it, and the moon was diminished. The sun was quiet and didn't lose out. Right? So it's like the shemesh that was shoymim charpasai v'shaisim. But what should a person do? person is quiet and feels that perhaps they'll lose out, the answer is they should daven for siyata d'shmaya. When we do the right thing, then Hashem gives us siyata d'shmaya. Now we daven for this, we men daven for this 3 times a day in Elikai Nitzar. We say in Elikai Nitzar, Vilim kalalai nafshi sidain. Those that either curse me or take me lightly, kal, vilim kalali nafshi, those that take me lightly, and perhaps don't give me the proper respect, sidain. I should be quiet. Vinafshi ka'ofer lakol tia. And my soul should be like earth, just like earth, when it's stepped on, it doesn't say, ouch. We shouldn't have to react. That's vinafshi ka'ofer lakol tia. Now the question, of course, becomes, wait a second, hold everything. I don't understand. I don't understand why do I pray for that? Why don't I just pray that nobody should talk not nicely to me? Actually, that's what we do later. We say, Psach libi b'sarasecha, open my heart in your Torah, v'achrei mitzvosecha tirdof nafshi, and I should run after your mitzvahs. And then we say, v'kol ha'choyishvim alai l'ra, whoever has any thoughts of evil, meheira hofer atzasam v'kalkal machshavtam. Their plans should be annulled, and their thoughts should be ruined. So there we say that people should not act out badly to us. So why don't we say that in the beginning? So first I thought it's because we don't want to lose the schus of being a mekaimei ha'olam. If everybody would pray that, who would sustain the world? We said, Toila Eretz al Blima. The world survives on those that were boilim piv b'shas meriva, who shut their mouth in the face of confrontation. If everybody prays not to have confrontation, then who's going to be mekayim the world? But I don't think we ask for the nisayon. I don't think we ask for trouble. So first of all, we have to know that we might not merit to ask that nobody should start up with us. That's a big request. That's a big request that in the daily interactions with people, everybody should be perfect. That's a big request to say it shouldn't happen. So the first thing we say is, Hashem, give me the ability to know how to handle it. And perhaps once we're zeicha to have a heart of Torah and to run after mitzvahs, then we could ask Hashem in the schus of our Torah and our mitzvahs, then please don't let us be deterred. Don't let us be distracted by people that think bad about us. I also had a thought that, we say all those that think bad. That doesn't include our family. Our family never thinks bad at us. They might say something foolishly. They might say something from stress. But they're not choshvin alai l'ra. So that's not included in that request. In that request, we say that people who plot evil because they're jealous of us, people who plot evil because they're our enemies, that doesn't refer to family interactions, to sibling rivalry, to stress between husband and wife. So there we ask Hashem, nafshi sidaim, let me not get involved. We said how unhealthy it is for the body, how unhealthy it is for the soul. V'nafshi ka'afala kol tiyam. Let me not have to react. Now, we know that the Gaon teaches us that the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is the Or Agonis, the light in the future, which only the tzaddikim can enjoy, right? In this world, there are a lot of great pleasures. The Riviera, right? A beautiful breeze, a sun-drenched beach. There's all kinds of pleasures, all kinds of succulent food, right? Amazing music. There's all kinds of pleasure. But the Goyim could have all those pleasures. There's one pleasure that it says Vayavdel, that Hashem divided and he put it away only for the tzaddikim. It says it in the Torah. They can't have it. That's the Oragonas, the hidden light. The guy says, how does a person merit that? He says, every moment where you could speak Lashon Hara and you choose not to, you merit the Oragonas. Now, this hidden light, Hashem didn't tell it to us in the Torah just to tease us or just to tell us about the future. The Balaturim tells us that Hashem hid that light in this world. It's there for us to find it. He says, it says, Vayarali Kim Es Ha'ar. Es Ha'ar is exactly the gematria Bat Torah. Hashem took this light and embedded it in the Torah because he knows the Rishon won't get it there. He hid it away from the Rishon. The Rishon are not going to mine